And welcome everybody to the Just Parlays show. I'm your co-host Scott Reichel, but today I am just the host because Chris is not going to be able to make it. So instead, it's going to be me going solo here talking about the Tuesday betting card. Figured it's going to be a lot of audience participation, so let me know in the comment section what games you want to talk about. I don't want to say it's going to be a Q&A per se. I'll go through some games that I like, etc. But it is definitely, let's just say, a loosely organized show today where I'll be going through my favorite plays, so to speak, but also addressing any questions or any games that any of you want to talk about in the comment section. Before we actually get into that, though, I am going to briefly recap some events that happened yesterday that I thought was pretty interesting or either upsetting as a Yankees fan, so I guess I'll start there. The Yankees are still bad. They still can't hit the ball. I had the Angels plus 1.5 as my play of the day. Yeah, it turns out that Stan coming back helped for about one game, and the Yankees still have not been able to do anything consistently. Angels won the game outright. I believe they were plus 160 and change in that one, as the Yankees' August woes continue. The road woes continue. The offense has really been a disaster, and the Angels got the job done there. Besides that, to go through the rest of the card from yesterday, Poole's homered again. I believe he's 6 away now from 700. Not sure if he's going to get there or not, but either way, still nice to see him producing at this age. The Brewers came from behind, had a nice walk-off two-run homer there in the ninth, and you had the Diamondbacks, who had the massive comeback against the Phillies. One of the worst beats of the season. Phillies were leading 7-0 in the top. They were leading 7-0 in the top of the fourth. Then the Diamondbacks scored 6 runs in the fourth inning, and then scored 6 runs in the bottom of the fifth inning. If you had Phillies first five money line, you led by 7 runs with about an inning and a half left, and you lost. So that's one of the worst beats of the season. That's pretty much going to sum it up for the baseball card yesterday. To go through some of the news stories, of course, you had the start of the U.S. Open. Yesterday, Serena did win, so she's moving on to round 2. A couple of upsets in there with Fritz and with Tsitsipas losing. So a lot of chaos on the men's side. The Tsitsipas match was relatively crazy because you had a top 5 player in the world win one game in the first 2 sets combined, which is absolutely just wild. And Galan ended up winning in 4, but Tsitsipas continues to be a psycho, and he ended up losing. Fritz lost to Holt. Good win for Holt, but mostly some upsets on the men's side. You had Halep, who lost on the women's side. Some questions, though. Once again, if you're just joining, I am going solo for this episode. Chris is busy, but I'll go through some plays that I like, and I'll also talk about some games that some of you want to talk about. So message in the comment section of the live stream which games you want to talk about, and I'll go through them. To go through some questions, though, Rye, yes, I am going solo. AJS asking how I approach line movement. Do I go with or against it? Usually, I try to beat the line move. That's kind of how I go about it. By the way, Chris is going to be here in a little bit, but he's having some technical difficulties, so I'm kind of just filling in for now. But to go through that question, AJS, I try to beat line moves. You might be able to see early movement based on where money's coming in and potentially beat it over the course of the next couple hours, or in my case, the night before. That's why a lot of the baseball plays I give out, or even basketball, or really any sport, football as well, a lot of the line movement that ends up coming in the next day tends to go in my favor because I tend to know what to look for. But when it comes to line movement, it's tricky once it's already happened because, for example, if you like a team to win the game by X amount of points and the spread opened up at 2 and then it is 4 by the time you consider betting it, you do have to wonder if you kind of missed the boat or if you still think there's value. So it's very tricky when you cross over key numbers in football or in basketball when you like a team minus 5.5 and suddenly it's 7.5, and you kind of have to wonder if it's worth chasing the steam or if you kind of need to hit the brakes and realize you missed out on where the value should be. So to answer your question, AJS, for approaching line movement, I tend to back it. I tend to think that a huge line move has some merit to it. But at some point, you do have to cut yourself off and tell yourself going into each individual game, okay, I'm not going to cross this number. If this line goes to 7, I'm staying away. I'll take it any number before that. So I tend to back it, but for the most part, most of the line movements that I end up benefiting from are me jumping in before the huge line move and getting a lot of closing line value. But I'm joined by a man without a face for this show, Chris King. Chris, how's it going with you?
I'd be fine if I figured out why the hell everything decided that it wanted to stop working at 1:58.
Did you
Uh,
hit the off and on button?
you mean the reset button?
Yeah, the reset button, the off and on button, all that stuff.
Yeah, it says camera off now. It says camera on, but it still acts like it's not there.
Okay,
Last
I don't know
time,
if you.
last
Wait.
time I turned off the webcam shield and everything, and it worked, and now it doesn't want to cooperate. So I'm gonna have to mess with it again.
All right, either way. So we're joined by the voice of Chris King here on the show. I wasn't sure if you were going to make it or not, but I started kind of just going through some brief comment section stuff, recapping what happened yesterday.
Yeah, I
You
agree with Ryan. I'm pissed about the Phillies too.
Yeah, Philly's first five especially was extremely rough for some people. Bumgarner was bad. That's what we thought would happen. Unfortunately, the Phillies were even worse somehow. So that's how that worked itself out. Yeah, Rise with me, just unplug it and plug it back in. That's
It's
usually
built in. It's built into the laptop.
means you have to break the computer and then replug it.
Yeah,
But
like I got time for that.
yeah, but you have any takeaways from yesterday's action, or seemed like everything kind of went the way you thought it would, besides the Phillies blowing a 7-run lead?
Disappointed that the Cubs were up 4-0 and knocked Barrios out, and then the bullpen decided that they were just going to give the game away. That was disappointing. What else? What did I see? Judge Homer. I don't think the Yankees won. I turned it off when it was 4-3.
No, they lost. I had the Angels plus 1.5 for my play of the day, which was a nice, easy winner. Yankees, I believe, led 1-0. No, they never led, or they led 2-1 in the fourth inning, and then gave up a run in the bottom of the fourth. So the Yankees never led by more than one, and they led by one for half an inning. There's really never in doubt the Yankees can hit. I've touched upon it, and yeah, if they're going to keep giving me plus 1.5 at roughly minus 110, minus 105, I'll keep taking it. I got the Yankees team total under 5 as my play of the day today, because why the hell would I assume they're going to get to 6?
Yeah, I was. The other thing I was disappointed is I was disappointed the Dodgers only scored 3 runs.
Yeah, that's true.
And Kimbrel walked the tightrope, and then they had to yank him out of there. Why Dave Roberts left him in when the Dodgers went ahead is beyond me, because we know how horrible he pitches in 1-run games, and he promptly loaded the bases in the 10th.
I still refuse to believe that Roberts actually has Kimbrel in his playoff plans. I just refuse to believe that, but he's still being thrown out there in regular season games. So
yeah, I mean, then they had to go to get Martin to bail them out, and Martin was an underrated pickup, I think, for the Dodgers bullpen. He should probably be closing in the ninth.
yeah, he's been good. Besides that, though, some other news to discuss. You had Byron Jones, the cornerback for the Dolphins, officially ruled out for the first 4 weeks of the season. So the Dolphins secondary should be a little bit weakened, or a lot weakened, if we're being honest, for the first month of the season. Besides that, the Eagles made a trade for Gardner Johnson, who's going to help out the secondary there.
I don't know. Fan of that move? Then they turned around and cut both their safeties.
Yes, they did. They weren't exactly a fan of the guys that they had. You a fan of the move overall? Because I do feel like it's a pretty smart move.
I mean, it's a good move, but I mean, who's going to play the other safety spot? Obviously, it's not going to be Harris, and it's not going to be Tart, so who's it going to be?
That's a fair point. But I do like Gardner Johnson as a player, so I think that that's going to help out the secondary. You suddenly have an interesting race in the AL Cy Young Award, because Verlander's now on the IL. So it's kind of anybody's race. I know Cease was good last time out, still picked up a loss because of the fact
he got a
that,
no decision. Graveman lost it in the ninth.
Oh, he got a no decision. I thought he gave up the solo homer.
Yeah, he got a solo homer that tied it. That made it.
That's right. Yeah, okay. That's right. I forgot that was to tie it. I thought that was okay. So either way, Cease pitched well, got a no decision. I still personally think Verlander's going to win the award, but now it gets a little bit interesting. You want to make a case for anybody else or somebody you can buy low on with Verlander now being out for about 3 starts?
The best option, because we know Cease and the White Sox are going the wrong direction. The only guy that I could think of would be if McClanahan pitches the way he's pitched in his last couple starts, and he gets Miami tonight, and we know Miami can't hit. So he should be in good shape there, but he's pretty much the only other guy that I can think of, because most of the rest of these guys, they're not that good.
Yeah, there's really not many options. That's why I'm kind of still leaning to Verlander by default. You have any other news you want to talk about? Because that's kind of all I have. It was a relatively light news day.
Very, very dull. Very dull.
I was gonna say, am I forgetting anything, or did I kind of touch upon it?
Not unless you want to talk about Calvin Ridley getting robbed.
No, but I mean that was news. He wasn't the only one. It was a bunch of celebrities that ended up getting their place vandalized and robbed and etc. So yeah, I guess one other question to ask you, since we just talked about the AL Cy Young Award, Judge hit 50. Is the race just over?
I think so. I mean, if you look at even if Judge does nothing the rest of the season, I know everybody wants to talk about Otani, but sure, you might be the most valuable player on a team that in the Angels that comes in and they're what 17 games under 500. They're not going anywhere. You don't see a lot of guys on losing teams win MVP awards.
Well, that used to be a thing. Then Trout won it a bunch, and his team sucked every year. So that narrative kind of went out the window. Stan also won. I mean, he had 59 home runs, but he won the award with the Marlins when they were awful. So that used to be a thing. I know Ernie Banks was the exception there.
Right
Ernie
back
Banks
in
was
the 50s.
one of the only guys who actually would win when his team came in last place. I feel like that narrative has shifted though. Now they just give it the best overall player. I think it's just Judge. I mean, Judge has 50. His numbers are amazing. He's been a great outfielder as well. I think that he's been definitely the guy to beat all season long, and I don't think anyone's going to beat him. So I'm going to go with Judge if I had a vote. Now, I do see some questions. I see David asking about St. Louis. First of all, to ask, do you have that on one of your slides? Or do you have that game in any capacity on one of the slides?
Because I think St. Louis is going to just beat the piss out of Justin Dunn.
Okay, so Dave, we're going to get to that in a little bit. However, we do want to briefly, or maybe not briefly, but at least discuss the NFC West, I believe, right? That was the division we agreed on?
Yeah, because we said it was either that or we do the North, where there's only two teams that are worth talking about, and then there's the South, where if you're lucky, you have two teams worth talking about.
Yeah, so we're going to do the West today, which should be one of the most competitive divisions in the entire league. To go through the actual odds, first of all, I am going to ask, we're going to work backwards here. Cardinals are, going to be an interesting team, but the Seahawks are easily going to be the worst team, and they're in the middle of a massive rebuild with an extremely old head coach, which I don't really understand, but, hell, we'll see what happens for him. But you want to make any type of case for Seattle, or we're just acknowledging that if they win 5 games, it's considered a good success for a season?
I don't think you can make a case for Seattle. Any team that's battling between Geno Smith and Drew Lock as your starting quarterback has more issues than anybody wants to talk about.
Yeah, and Seattle's also 20-1 to win the division, if you want to go for odds.
That's probably still being optimistic.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know how they're 20-1 and the Texans are 30-1. I mean, the Texans are in the much worse division. I don't get that at all, but whatever. Seattle's going to be bad. We already know this. Arizona is the second highest odds at plus 400. I don't think Arizona is going to be very good, and I'm not afraid to say that. I don't know how many times Kingsbury's teams need to collapse in the second half of seasons, not to mention all of the Murray controversy during the offseason with his obsession of playing Call of Duty, with his contract wording, and then it immediately got removed because of public backlash. Do you like Arizona at all? They also lost Chandler Jones. I think this team's not going to be very good. Hopkins is suspended for at least a month and a half.
Yep.
Do you think they finish above 500? Because I don't.
I think their ceiling is probably 9-8, and that's being generous.
Yeah. I got 7-10 if you wanted me to pick a record right now. I really don't think they're going to be very good.
Yeah, I mean, you look, they've got to play Tampa Bay. They've got the Chargers in there. Well, they've got the whole AFC West. So, but then they've got, like I said, they got Tampa Bay. Then you got to play the Rams twice. You play a home game against San Francisco at Mexico City.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Philadelphia in there. I don't see them going any better than 9-8, and that's going to be a stretch.
I think they're going to be bad. So Arizona, I'm low on. I think that they're going to probably come in third place by default, because of how bad Seattle's supposed to be. Now, moving into the serious contenders for this division, it's really a 2-horse race. You have San Francisco at plus 150, and the defending Super Bowl champion Rams at plus 130. I'm just going to ask you in general, who are you picking to win the division and why?
I'm going to lean toward the Rams because, I mean, obviously they've been there. They did it last year. they still got a ton of talent on both sides of the ball. 49ers, I can't figure out what they're doing. I mean, they were going to trade Garoppolo. They were going to cut Garoppolo. Now they decided to re-sign him. How does that help Trey Lance?
In case he gets hurt, I guess they have a backup option.
Yeah, but I mean, Lance is going to be looking over his shoulder, wondering when Kyle Shanahan's going to pull him when he goes 7 of 22 for 87 yards and 2 interceptions against somebody. Well, I get that the 49ers have an early, easy start in the first couple weeks. They get the Bears and the Seahawks. But then you get Denver and the Rams.
I was going to say, let's ignore the Garoppolo elephant in the room situation. Let's just focus on the immediate discussion for Trey Lance. Do you think he's actually good at football?
Trey Lance is like a poor man's Lamar Jackson.
That's kind of how I view him.
Yeah. He likes to run, doesn't throw much. Didn't throw a whole lot at North Dakota State.
He also played basically like 1 year there and then took a year off for the draft and then immediately sat last year or was in some wildcat packages with the occasional start when Garoppolo got hurt. He's really not experienced at all, and yet it seems like especially fantasy football communities love him and think he's going to be this incredible guy. I don't think that Trey Lance is that good, and I haven't seen anything from him which suggests he's going to be the answer at quarterback long-term. So I'm low on Lance, which is why I think the Niners will be a good team, but not a great team, because I'm really not sold on the quarterbacks. I'm going to pick the Rams. I know that Donald might get suspended for week 1 against Buffalo, and they're going to need him for week 1. I doubt he'll get suspended. But the Rams, you have to worry about the hangover, but I still like their overall roster. They got a lot of guys back. I know Odell's gone, but they got Allen Robinson.
Yep.
I think I'm going with the Rams by default because I do like Stafford as a quarterback, and I like McVay as a coach. The defense is pretty good. The Niners, I just can't trust winning a competitive division when their quarterback is basically a rookie. Because Lance played, 2 games as a starter last year? 1 game as a starter? And he got hurt.
I think it was 2.
And he got hurt. So I don't trust their quarterback situation. I feel like I have to pick the Rams by default.
I also look at the fact that, San Francisco, they were great defensively, but they also led the league in pass interference calls on defense.
They a lot of yards.
They had the 3rd fewest pass defenses and the 5th fewest interceptions. So they signed Charvarius Ward. When was Ward ever good?
I was going to say, they tried to sign 90-year-old Richard Sherman about a year or 2 ago. So they've been desperate to try to find some answers in the secondary. Rye's asking if Stafford's healthy with the elbow. It's not ideal, but you knew Stafford wasn't going to play in the preseason at all because McVay never uses any starters in preseason. So he had an extra month and change to actually heal. It's a bit concerning, but I still think that Stafford with a potentially messed up elbow might still be better than Lance. I think this division is going to be difficult because of the quarterback concerns with the Stafford health and with Lance. But I'm going to go with the Rams because I do think the Rams are just a good overall team. And they have more weapons. And you look at the Niners, Ayuk was pretty decent at the end of last year, fell off a cliff in the actual beginning of the year. Samuel's good, we know that. Kittle, we know, is good, but he gets hurt every year. Mitchell's a good running back, but he's a bit banged up. And Trey Lance, we don't know what to expect. So with too many question marks, and with Shanahan being extremely conservative late in games, I'm going to have to go with the Rams.
And with Mitchell, if he gets hurt, who are you going to give the ball to? Jeff Wilson? JaMychal Hasty? I mean Trey Sermon?
I was going to say, they have Sermon, who I think is a disaster, but they really don't have many options. So we'll see. I do like the Rams, though. I think that team is really just wired. And the Niners, people try to always make this case that they're going to be this extremely elite defense and the offense will do enough to get by. As you said before, did you think that the defense was elite last year? Because I thought it was good, but not like, holy crap, this defense is amazing.
Yeah, it was good, but when you look and you say they were 3rd in total defense, so what? If you're giving of a ton of yards and defensive penalties, they don't put those in the total defense stats.
Yeah.
So you're still chunking up yards.
There's a lot of penalties, and I still can't get past the fact that the defense might have to stand on its head with a rookie quarterback behind center. So the offense might really be forced to rely on the defense to keep them in games. That's why I like the Rams, because I just think they could win. They could win in a variety of ways. I can't see the Niners winning games when they allow 27 plus points. The Rams can. So that's why I'm going with the Rams. I just think that they can win in various game scripts. The Niners can't, in my eyes.
Right, and you talk about basically being a rookie quarterback under center. Don't forget Alex Mack retired.
Yeah, and that's going to
So
hurt the offensive line, of course.
who are you going to have at center? Because you didn't really have a replacement on the roster. Is it you going to put Jake Grendel in there?
The point is, it's a serious question mark, and Max, a future Hall of Famer?
Potentially. I mean, he was
Maybe
very
not
good
first
center.
ballot. At some point, I think he'll get in. My
Yeah,
opinion.
I can see that.
But, so you're missing a high quality center, and now you got to replace them with kind of an unproven commodity. Not exactly ideal to protect a young quarterback who did get injured in very limited action last year.
And of course, don't forget they also lost Laken Tomlinson too. So I mean, they lost one of their interior linemen.
I'm trying to think of any other spins to actually put on this division. I think the Niners, with a rookie quarterback, will still make the playoffs. I'm not picking them to fall off a cliff per se. If you want to take a spin there, the Niners to miss the playoffs is plus 175. The Cardinals to miss the playoffs is minus 150. I really like the Cardinals to miss the playoffs.
What's the Seahawks to miss the playoffs? Minus 275.
I don't even know if they're here, to be honest. They're minus 650 to miss the playoffs. Do you want to make a case for the Niners to miss the playoffs at plus 175, or do you think they get in at the end?
There's so many bad teams in the conference.
And there's 3 wildcard spots, so I think that the Niners will get in. But the Cardinals minus 150, I do think is a steal. I don't see Arizona getting in.
Yeah, I mean, you look and, we talked about that this team plays, or this division plays the AFC West, but they also play the NFC South. And, when you get Carolina and Atlanta, in the case of San Francisco, they get them in back-to-back weeks. You're basically gifting yourself at least you're giving yourself 2 wins for sure, depending on what you get out of New Orleans or Tampa Bay on any given week. You could pull something out there as well. And then, you get Seattle twice. You get they play Washington.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities to beat up on bad teams on that schedule.
And to look at some win totals or some alternative win totals, the Cardinals are at 8.5, which sounds about right. That's where we think they're going to end up. However, if you agree with me and you think they potentially go 7-10, you could get under 7.5 wins on the alternative win total at plus 165. Do you have any thoughts on that? Or do you prefer to just take the regular 8.5?
Well, I mean, if you think they're going to go 7-10, then obviously you would jump at the 7.5. I'd have to take a closer look and see how bad their schedule is. I don't
feel
Hopkins
great.
Comes back.
I don't feel great about them being 7-10. That's just my prediction. I think they'll go 7-10 or 8-9. If Kyler gets hurt, they might win 5 games.
True.
In the season, which is always a concern because Murray has been banged up in the past. I'm just bringing it up there. If you do think Arizona potentially implodes, plus 165 for under 7.5 wins, I do think is a solid option. If you want to go on the other end and you think 8.5 sounds about right, you could get under 9.5 at minus 190, which I actually like. I know that there's a lot of juice attached to that. I don't see this team winning 10 games.
No, I don't either. Let's just take a quick look here. Kansas City, they'll probably lose.
Yep.
Vegas on the road.
I think they'll lose that one too.
Then they get the Rams at home.
They'll lose that too.
So there you've already got them 0-3. They go to Carolina.
That's not easy because it's at Carolina, but I think they'll win that one.
Yeah, especially since it's a 4 o'clock start, so they're not going over there for the old 10 a.m. West Coast start. Mm. Then they get the Eagles at home. They'll probably lose there.
Probably. That's a lot of really good teams to start the season.
Yeah, then they go to Seattle.
It's never easy. They should win, but
then it's New Orleans on a Thursday night at home.
They'll lose that one.
So that puts them at 2-6,
2-7.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2-5.
And we were talking about some of those division games. You travel to Seattle. Seattle's going to suck, but it's never easy to travel there.
No, it's not.
So
then they get Minnesota on the road.
Probably a loss. That's a
And
game
then,
Minnesota would lose via like missed field goal at the buzzer, but I'll give it to Minnesota.
then it's Seattle at home.
Okay.
Then it's the Rams on the road. Then it's the 49ers in Mexico City.
Yeah.
Then it's the Chargers.
There's a lot of really good teams on that schedule. If you want to lay the 190, I don't mind it. But going through that schedule, I do like the under 7.5. I think that team's going to be underwhelming. If you want to actually look at some other future odds, you could take first coach to get fired or to resign. I like how they added resign after the Gruden situation. Like they added another wording so they couldn't get loopholed. They have Kingsbury at 9-1. I don't mind that at 9-1.
Who else is on the list?
You have Rule as the favorite at plus 350.
I figured that was coming.
I don't know what to think of that, though, because I feel like even the front office knows Carolina is in the middle of like a half-assed rebuild. There's not many expectations for that team. McCarthy's at 5-1, but we know that Jerry Jones is very loyal to coaches for no reason. Pete Carroll's at 6-1. I think there's no chance he gets fired mid-season. It's Seattle. Like, I think if they were going to get rid of Carroll, they should have done it during the offseason. You have Ron Rivera at 8-1. I don't think Washington has any expectations. I don't think Rivera is going to get fired. And you have Kingsbury at 9-1. I think Kingsbury makes sense because the Cardinals are delusional, and they still think that if they traded for Hollywood Brown and they made some moves, they could potentially compete for something. So I actually like the 9-1 on Kingsbury. McCarthy, I would pick if Jerry Jones was actually willing to fire coaches mid-season. But Rule and Carroll have no expectations. Rivera doesn't have many expectations, and he led his team to the playoffs a couple years ago. I'm assuming you also think that there might be some value in Kingsbury.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's still a lot of talk down here about how Rule might not make it to mid-season if they start off, 2-5 or 2-6 because they haven't shown any improvement since he took over the team. But other than that, Kingsbury's got to be a prime option because that team started the year 7 or 8-0 last year and ended up 11-6, and then
if
got
they start
run
off
out
badly,
of the playoffs.
Yeah, but you mentioned how bad how tough the schedule is early on. Arizona could potentially start if they get upset by a division team on the road. What, they could be 0-5?
Yeah.
Do you think he gets fired at 0-5? Like, at what point does Arizona completely pull the trigger and make the switch? Is it 0-5? Is it like 7 games into a season? How early are we looking at?
I don't think they'd pull it at 5 games. I think you probably would have to get at least 7 or 8, just because I don't see them saying or panicking because they'll be like, well, Hopkins isn't here. We're still trying to figure out these pieces, blah, blah, blah. AJ Green's 400 years old.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have Kirk. We're trying to figure out how Hollywood Brown meshes in the offense. But then, after Hopkins comes back and they still struggle, then I think they're like, well, we've got to make a change, which they'll spin it as, we want to thank Cliff for what he did with the organization and blah, blah, blah. And, this isn't an indication of how bad of a coach he is. And then they'll turn around and hire somebody else that'll be absolutely terrible too.
Yeah, so James is kind of pushing back a little bit, and he's saying that he thinks Kingsbury might get fired at the end of the year, thinks that it might be easier for Bidwell to wait. I think based on that, you can make an argument which owner is going to get trigger happy and which, is potentially going to pull the trigger and switch coaches mid-season. Now, the resigning part you can't account for because you might just have a coach that quits. So you can't really factor that in. I mean, hell, if you're making that case, it could be Belichick if the Patriots go 0-5. But based on what I'm looking at for this overall market, Rule maybe. I mean, no, James, it's a fair point. I mean, you're mentioning Bidwell as the owner is always going to be. You call them a tightwad. I can respect that, but I mean, that's a fair point to make. But based on the unpredictability of the owners or the predictability of the owners, I'm tossing Carroll out. I don't see Seattle firing their best coach in franchise history mid-season. Do you?
No.
What's he supposed to do? You got Geno Smith as your quarterback. Like, what is Pete Carroll supposed to do?
And to James's point, the last time the Cardinals fired a coach in season was back in 2000 when they fired Vince Tobin, who was 2-5. They put Dave McGinnis in his place. McGinnis went 1-8.
But when was the last time the Cowboys fired somebody mid-season? It's been a long time.
Let me take a look.
But I'm just thinking top of my head because you had Garrett who got fired during the offseason. You had Wade Phillips who got fired, I want to say during the offseason, but I'm not fully sure about that.
Nope, Phillips got fired in season.
Okay, so Phillips was fired in season, but you've had several coaches after that who have not been fired until the offseason. So I don't know if McCarthy...
Phillips was 1-7. He got fired in 2010. Garrett took over and went 5-3 in the second half.
Okay.
But that's pretty much the only time you've seen that happen, because you got to remember, for the longest time it was Tom Landry before they canned him after the 88 season. Then you had Jimmy Johnson, then Barry Switzer, and so on and so forth. So it's only happened once in Dallas.
Do you want to make a case for Ron Rivera with Snyder as the man, as the owner, or no? Because
Snyder's got his own problems. He's not going to worry about firing Rivera.
I'm trying to look at other options here. Do you want to make a case for a long shot? Like, do you want to make a case for maybe a Brandon Staley if the Chargers miss on a couple of key fourth downs in the fourth quarter the first couple weeks? I mean, if you want, I'm just saying, if you want to go for a long shot, Staley's 66-1. I think there are worse options at 66-1.
I'm just trying to think, I guess, if you want to put somebody on the hot seat that's a lesser option, you could look at, somebody might say Frank Reich. Somebody might say
Reich is 11-1.
Well, so he's not that far down the list.
I don't think they're going to fire him, though, because that division is so bad that the Colts might walk in backwards to a division title. I think you need a team that's going to fully implode to start the year. So I mentioned the Chargers because they do play the Chiefs week 2, and we know that Staley's not afraid to go for broke all the time when it comes to fourth down decisions. Just saying, 66-1, if you want to take a spin there, I don't necessarily mind it.
Yeah, I mean, I find it unlikely that they'd get rid of him.
Oh, it's 100% unlikely. It's 66-1. I'm just throwing it out there.
I'm just trying to think of who else would be a longer shot. I mean, obviously, the Bears just got a new coach. They're not going to fire him that early because they gave Nagy 4 years. If
you want to look at the odds here, you have Staley, as I said, at 66-1. The other people with him are Doug Peterson and Mike McDaniel. 2 first-year head coaches. Eberflus is right behind them with Zach Taylor. You're going to put a second-year guy who underachieved in his first season with the same odds as 2 rookie coaches or 2 brand-new coaches to the organization? That doesn't make any sense.
What's Dan Campbell's odds?
Campbell is actually low. Campbell's at 12-1. Vrabel's at 12-1 as well.
Well, that's because Tennessee choked in the playoffs last year.
Correct. So if you want to make a case, Campbell's at 12. I don't think the Lions are going to fire him. Yeah, I think that's basically it. I don't see many great options. I do think that these awards or these markets, these future markets, tend to be very top-heavy, with the exception of an email scandal where you have to fire a coach who was like 60-1 to get fired first with Gruden. But still,
what's Saleh's odds? Is he up there?
Salah is 14-1.
So he's near the top 2 then. Yeah, so you're right. There's not a ton of good options out there because so many of these teams just overturn their coaching staffs, like the Giants. All the bad teams have newer coaches. Arthur Smith has only been in Atlanta for a year.
He's also got Mariota as his quarterback, so he's got an excuse built in already.
True. Denver, I guess, they're not going to fire Hackett at 2 or 3 games into the season, even though I don't think he should be a head coach.
He's 80-1, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I feel like if I was betting this market, I'd bet on 2 people right now. I would bet McCarthy and I would bet on Kingsbury. I think that's basically it. You can make a case, as I said before, for Staley at 66-1 if you want to just make some jokes for some pizza money. But if I was picking any, I would pick Ryan making a good joke, though, about Josh McDaniels potentially quitting, which would be kind of funny. But yeah, I think my 2 picks would be McCarthy and would be Kingsbury.
Rice said maybe Josh McDaniel quits again.
No, I know. That's what I just read that off. So I think that could be funny. If you want to make a case for McDaniels, he's currently at 100-1.
Wow.
So there you go.
So he's almost at the bottom of the list.
He has the third highest odds.
And Andrew said Vic Carapaz is behind the plate for the Twins Red Sox. Oh, God.
Yeah.
If there's an umpire that's almost as bad as Angel Hernandez, it's Carapaz.
It's not Buckner. So Buckner might be worse than everybody else. But
That's
either
saying
way,
something.
yeah, it definitely is. You have anything else you want to talk about for this division, or should we just move on to the baseball card?
Now we can move on to the baseball card.
Cool.
Remember
So while you pull,
remember Eric Gregg is an ump?
that's a fun time too. So while you pull that up, I'll briefly do some housekeeping stuff. We are brought to you once again by BetMGM. They have a great deal for first-time users of their app or website. Get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. All the information is in the show box. Check the age limits, and as always, bet responsibly. So let's get into the parlays.
Yeah, let's take a look at them. Like we just talked about the Cardinals at the top of the show when David was asking about them. Let me just say this is not an endorsement of Dakota Hudson. Don't like him.
You shouldn't, but he's better than Dunn.
Well, I mean, Kenny Janunez from the Sandlot is better than Dunn. Let's be honest.
He was over under, and I was under Dunn.
Or well done.
Yep.
But let's face it, that game last night, it was 8-0 after 3
4 innings.
Yeah, something like that. Mikolas, tried to give the Reds a beacon of hope by struggling, but then they couldn't score anymore, especially after the rain delay. The game was a romp. I mean, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see it being any different here. I mean, you look at Goldschmidt and Arenado, and Tyler O'Neill homered twice yesterday. And there's just a lot of good bats in that St. Louis lineup.
Yep.
And the Reds don't have any. Anything you want to add about that?
No, Hudson battled against the Cubs. I guess his closing numbers weren't bad, but I didn't think he looked good in that start at all. Seemed like the Cubs just stranded a bunch of guys on base. Total in this one is about 10 and a half.
Yeah.
I can't really disagree with it because the Cardinals scored 13 yesterday, and we know that both starters aren't exactly great. Dunn was okay last time out, though, against the Phillies. Any thoughts on the total in this one? Because Dunn's ERA at home, 12.27. Now, it's only been one start, but he got shelled by the Cubs. He's been okay his last 2 times out, though, so do you want to make a case for a Reds team total over, anything like that?
I was actually going to lean toward the Cardinals team total over if I was going to pick one. It's over 5.5. I think it was minus 130 or something this morning. But, St. Louis, they've bashed the Reds most of the season. And Cincinnati's pitching, it doesn't matter if it's their starters, doesn't matter if there's relievers, doesn't matter if they've been a major league pitcher forever or if they're a rookie. The Reds suck.
Yep, definitely true. By the way, I'm seeing a couple of questions about some college football stuff. I think we're going to save all the college football stuff to either the day of the game or the Friday show for the Saturday card. I feel like that's a lot easier, don't you think?
Well, I'm just looking. Which day does Maryland play? Because I know James wants to know about the West Virginia Pitt game, and that's Thursday.
The truth is, I haven't really done a lot of research on the games yet. That's a Thursday game, so we'll probably go over that on Thursday. I feel like doing it the day of or for Saturday's case on Friday, I think makes the most sense. So that's kind of
Maryland's playing UB Saturday. That'll be interesting.
It should be fascinating. Buffalo's supposed to be atrocious. I would lean to Maryland anyway, but Maryland usually starts off the season like 3-0, and then they run into conference play and they get absolutely smacked, and then they finish like 6-6. That's usually how. That's usually if they're lucky. Sometimes 5-7. So that's kind of how I'm looking at that game. But for future reference, I think we'll stick to college football later on in the week. To go through some other stuff, Andrew asking about some U.S. Open plays. I have Schwartzman tonight as the final leg of that 2-pick parlay I gave out on the air a couple of days ago for my play of the day. Besides that, Andrew, I can't really talk about any quarters or finals because they're in the middle of matches right now. So pretty much all the quarters odds, I believe, are down. You might be able to find a quarter 1 or 2, but with matches going on, you usually don't have many futures that are up right now. For the final, I have the opposite of upsets. I just have Medvedev against Nadal in the final. That's kind of just what I'm looking at. So, yeah, I feel like For the actual tennis thoughts, I have play the day videos occasionally. I do a tennis podcast, which I should have another one for tonight. So check and keep an eye on that for Twitter. But as of right now, for the future odds, I really don't have many because they're still playing right now, and a lot of books pull the actual markets. So I can't
Where have
really.
you gone, Stan Wawrinka?
Wawrinka lost in the first round. He's been
That's what I mean.
battling
Where have you gone?
injuries. He got injured. He had a couple knee issues, and it's sad because one of my favorite players, and he's never going to make a quarter ever again. It's unfortunate, but injuries are a part of the sport, so it's rough.
Yeah, and then in the other half of that two-teamer with the Cardinals, I'm going to take the Guardians because you know who's pitching for the Guardians tonight, Scott? The run support king.
Oh, it's Quantrill.
Yep, against Spencer Watkins. The Guardians have won Quantrill's last 9 starts.
I'm still confused by what the Orioles are doing with Watkins, though, because he was good in the rotation. Then they put him in like middle long relief, and now he's back in the rotation. I don't really know what they're doing with Watkins, but he's been decent this year. Guardians, though, they need to do well in the series because they struggled over the weekend against Seattle.
Yeah, and they've. Speaking of Watkins, Baltimore has dropped his last 4 starts.
Actually, do the Guardians even need to do anything this weekend? Because the Twins and the White Sox both suck. So
yeah, but the Twins won yesterday, which I was disappointed in. But,
yeah, that's true.
And you want to try and take advantage of some of these things where you have the Guardians, like we said, Quantrill's the run support king. He gets 5.75 runs of support per start. They've scored at least 6 runs in 14 of his 24 starts this season. 6. I mean, that's just friggin' ridiculous.
By the way, James, to touch upon the college thing, it is true. If you bet on college football early in the week, you might end up beating some line moves. The issue is that Chris and I do so much baseball research and all this other stuff. I'm not sure I have the time to go through every college football matchup already. I might just have to wait until like later on in the week.
Yeah, I mean, I've written a few games already for this week. I had to do Tennessee, Ball State.
I'm doing baseball. I'm doing tennis. I got a lot of like timely stuff that I'm worried about right now. College football I might dabble with early in the week, but I usually will wait till a day or two before. I just have way too many sports to follow right now.
I still recommend taking Central Michigan with the points.
Yeah, but we said that when the line opened. I know we went through a couple of lines a couple of weeks ago for like week 0, week 1. I know Central Michigan was getting 24, and we both like Central Michigan at 24.
It's like 21 now.
Yeah, so that doesn't surprise me because Oklahoma State's offense shouldn't be great. But once again, we're going to go through some games, so we're just going to wait a couple of days to actually go through them.
Yeah, I think that backyard brawl game will be interesting, though, for sure, seeing Keaton Slovis playing for Pitt.
I do not like Pitt this season at all. Do I like West Virginia? Not that much, but they're getting 7.5. That's not terrible.
I don't even remember who's starting a quarterback for West Virginia off the top of my head.
It's fair.
Do you know who's playing quarterback for him?
It's not Doge, I'll tell you that much.
I can tell you that much.
I can tell you that much, but that's the issue West Virginia runs into. They haven't had a great quarterback in a long time. And who was their last like actual solid quarterback? Right now they have JT Daniels, who I'm assuming would be the starter.
Oh, God, that's right. I forgot he transferred up there.
I'm not sure if he officially got the starting job, but if he transferred from Georgia, you better get the starting job.
I mean, Will Greer was good.
Greer was good. They had Geno. I mean, Pat White's one of my all-time favorite college quarterbacks, but their last good college quarterback.
Daniels was named the starter yesterday.
Yeah. But either way, point is, I'm assuming Daniels will be the starter. Either way, that's not bad. I think Daniels is comparable to Slovis. I'm really just anti-Slovis, if I'm being honest. But
well, that's just great.
Are you a fan of Slovis? Because I watched him at UCLA's friendly offense, and he looked awful.
You mean USC's?
USC, sorry. Yeah, he's got a noodle arm. I can't go against it.
Yeah, I'm just not sold on Daniels either because, he got upended by Stetson Bennett.
Oh, I'm not a fan of his either, but you're getting 7.5 points, and Pitt also lost Addison, who was their best receiver.
True.
So I think in those games, Pitt and West Virginia, they got a rivalry there. I think that game, it's not as big of a rivalry as it used to be, but they tend to play each other close. I don't necessarily mind getting over a touchdown with West Virginia.
Speaking of Addison, didn't he go to USC?
Yes, he did.
So there you go. They traded Slovis for Addison. It was a 1-for-1 trade.
Indirectly, they got robbed.
I'm going to go with the Rays over the Marlins. It's McClanahan and Jesus Luzardo. Luzardo's pitched pretty well. I'll give him that.
I like the under.
Here's the problem. Tampa Bay in the last month has averaged 4.6 runs a game. Miami in the same span, 2.3.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who you are. You're not going to beat teams 2-1.
I mean, I just like the team total under for Miami. I mean, we saw Grove pitch decently well. Yeah. I expect McClanahan to shut the door. I like. The Marlins
I think he should mow them
under.
down pretty well.
Yeah. Strikeouts, whatever.
And I did see BJ was asking about the Dodgers-Mets game. It's Heaney and Taijuan Walker. I actually like the Dodgers just because after watching the Mets do nothing as Herman Marquez, and with Walker having so many issues with his back and everything lately, I don't know how long he's going to go. And
yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm either looking at Dodgers team total or first five. Walker, you mentioned the injuries recently. I'm a bit concerned there. Heaney's randomly been good. I'm not sure why he's been good. But to go through the actual starts for Walker, he's been okay lately, but I can't get past the fact that he went 5 innings against the Yankees, 2 innings against the Braves, 6 against the Reds, 1 inning against Atlanta. He's not really going much length.
Yeah, and the two inning starts when he left with the back issue.
And we talk about how some teams have great closers. Edwin Diaz, we know, has been amazing.
Yep.
Do you like the Mets' middle relief? Because I don't. I don't like Seth Lugo and company.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I don't like Lugo either. Trevor Williams, not really a guy that I would want to have in the middle of the bullpen either.
I'm just looking at a team total. That's kind of how I'm going about it. But
if I had to take a side, I would take. Yeah, if I had to take a side, I'd take the Dodgers just because.
And the Dodgers rested half their team yesterday, so they're going to play in this game.
That's true.
So
you're going to see Mookie Betts, you're going to see Freeman, and all those guys. Yep. And then we've got Houston over Texas. Framber Valdez,
good.
21 consecutive quality starts.
Is he the most underrated starting pitcher in the league?
I think so, because nobody ever talks about him, because all you talk about is Verlander, and then you talk about some people will talk about Urquidy, and some people will talk about now that Lance McCullers is back, and everybody forgets about Valdez.
Mm-hmm.
His last non-quality start, April 19th.
He's been amazing for the past month and change.
I think I wrote this one up yesterday. And don't get me wrong, Dane Dunning has been decent of late, basically since the start of July. But Valdez has won 4 straight starts. He's given up 6 runs on 20 hits and struck out 25 guys over 27 1/3.
It's also just a low price. You're getting the best team in the American League at minus 154.
Yeah, that didn't make a lot of sense to me either.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I know that they had their struggles against Baltimore over the weekend, but let's face it, Texas isn't Baltimore.
Yep, and Baltimore can actually pitch.
Yeah. Dunning, he hasn't lost since June 29th, but he's also got 6 no decisions in 8 starts.
And I'll take Houston's bullpen against Texas any day of the week.
True, because Texas' bullpen has screwed me over too many times.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that'll take us to 4 for the show. Look at that. I've got a bunch of random numbers up there. I'm going to take the Royals over the White Sox, Scott. It's Brady Singer against Giolito. Giolito has not pitched well all season. And Singer's been good, and we saw the Royals actually score some runs over the weekend. I mean, what's up with that?
They scored 15 against the Padres on Sunday.
Yes, thanks to Josh Hader helping out.
Yep.
Do you have any thoughts on that? Can you trust the White Sox? They've lost, 9 out of 11?
They got swept at home by Arizona. Like, I'm not picking the White Sox in that one. I do like Rye's play, though. He's got the Royals' first 5. Yeah, both these bullpens are not particularly good, but I do like Singer compared to Giolito. I just can't back the White Sox because this team, I mean, it's a reflection of their manager. They just look disinterested.
True. The Red Sox over the Twins. I'm going back to this one now that Carapaza's behind the plate. You probably should play the over. Cutter Crawford, he hasn't been all that great lately, but he's going against the quintessential 4-and-run guy, and that's Chris Archer.
Yep.
Can't back Archer. I just can't.
Yep, it's fair.
I mean, he hasn't gone more than 5 innings in a start all year.
I'll go with the Red Sox team total over in that one.
Over 37.
Well, the Red Sox are plus money, so you're probably going to be getting. What's the total in that game? That total's 9.
I think so. Let me double check. I've got my screen up here.
Total's 9 flat, so you're probably looking at both teams at 4.5. But you might be able to find a flat 4 for the Red Sox. I wouldn't mind the team total.
You're still
over
getting
4.
it at 9. FanDuel knocked it down to 8.5.
Okay, so that means the FanDuel team total probably has. It's not going to be 3.5. It's probably
So
a flat 4 for Boston.
Yeah,
I would take the over 4 if I had that option.
Yeah, let me see what BetMGM has real quick.
I know they don't do halves, so it's probably plus money 4.5 and extreme minus for 3.5.
Probably, just because they're communists. But what are you gonna do? Boston. Here we go. Total. Okay, Boston over 3.5 plus 1 or minus 150. Over 4.5 plus 110.
Okay, so plus money minus. That's what I thought. Now 3.5 at minus 150 is not bad. I thought it was going to be close to like minus 170. But you can get over 4 for Boston at minus 115. I think that's a pretty good deal.
True. The A's over the Nationals. Cole Irvin looked really good in his last start.
He's been good for the past month and change.
Yeah, I mean, sure, it was against the Marlins, but who says the Nationals can hit any better than the Marlins?
Yeah.
And Eric Fetty-Wap going for the Nats. Don't like him. Don't like
Plus,
Washington.
Oakland's coming off a series win against the Yankees. They got some momentum, question mark.
Question mark. I'm Ron Burgundy.
Yep.
And the Phillies and Diamondbacks under 7.5. It's Nola and Gallen. Nola coming off a shutout in his last start. Gallen, I don't think he's given up a run in about 3 years.
He's so good.
He's so good. He's another guy that's underrated because nobody talks about him because he's playing for Arizona and they suck.
Yeah, he'd be a Cy Young candidate if he was on any team that was even remotely close to a playoff push.
I mean, you look, he's what, 9-2.
He's him and Kelly are both incredible, and they're both being wasted in Arizona.
Hasn't given up a run in his last 4 starts, spanning 27 1/3. He struck out 32 in that span while giving up a total of 12 hits.
He is dealing.
Yeah, and he should have gotten the win in Kansas City. He left after 6 innings of shutout ball, and then the bullpen gave up 5 in the 7th.
Yep.
I mean, what's the guy got to fucking do to get a win?
Complete game, perfect game.
Pretty much.
Yep.
JR said, do you like Boston's team total over 4.5 at plus 110?
I don't mind it, but to be honest, I'd rather have 3.5 or 4. I think 4 is a great deal at minus 115. And yes, you can argue, well, that means obviously if you're going to win, they're going to go over that. But yeah, but I like the insurance policy of 4. I mean, that helps,
He also said the Reds team total 3.5 at minus 140.
Yeah.
And good old Jeffrey Mayer saying FanDuel has the Red Sox over 4 at minus 120.
I swear it was 115 a minute ago. So I guess there has been some movement on that.
Those bastards messing everything up for people.
Either way, it's still 4. I like it. Maybe first 5 team total if you just want to fade Archer. You got options.
Yeah, because Archer will probably walk half the ballpark.
And then maybe give up a 3-run homer.
This is true.
Yep.
That takes us a shot in the dark. There's a whole bunch of random crap on here. Ryan Mountcastle over 1.5 total bases. I'm not saying Quantrill's not going to give up runs.
But they're not playing Toronto.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's only plus 105.
Yeah.
But, I'm not saying Quantrill's not going to give up runs. I'm just saying that they're going to score a whole bunch for him. So, I mean, Mountcastle can do some damage. Trout, he had a couple hits yesterday. It was a lot better at plus 125 than plus 105, but what are you going to do?
Tyone's had issues giving up home runs, and Trout could take him deep.
What's up with Rengifo hitting homers all of a sudden?
I predicted him to have a home run yesterday on Twitter. There was a contest that I entered. It was like the longest shot prediction for a home run. I actually gave out Renifo at plus 700.
Yeah, I remember I talked about him the one day when he was plus 750 and he ended up homering. I was like, what the hell is this?
I gave him out there, and on this show, I said I think Ohtani homers yesterday against Montes, and he homered. So
Yep.
I saw that game perfectly clearly yesterday. I picked 2 home run guys. They both homered. I picked the Angels to win. They won. Picked the Yankees to barely score. They barely scored. I called that game to a T.
But you said the Yankees. You were hoping the Yankees were going to win 3-2.
I said I was hoping.
That's
I said I thought they would
I did
lose.
specify that you said you were hoping.
I had Angels 4-2 in my head. They won 4-3. Whatever.
Bryce Harper over 1.5 total bases. Harper's hit pretty well since he came off the IL.
Yeah. Yes.
Hopefully, the Phillies don't blow another 7-run lead.
Mm-hmm.
Rafael Devers over 1.5 total bases. That's provided he doesn't get walked 4 times.
Against Archer. I mean,
yeah, you could do worse.
Yep.
Rizzo homered yesterday. He's facing Mike Mayers today? Is that who's pitching for the Angels?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Mayers. It's just mostly fading the Yankees' offense. But the wind is blowing out to right field, so that's going to help Rizzo's home run power. I don't mind that.
Yeah, he homered yesterday too.
Yep.
Jose Ramirez over 1.5 total bases.
I'm still not sure how it's plus money all the time.
I can't figure that out either.
Right.
But you know what? As long as they're going to put it up there at plus money, we're going to take it.
Okay.
It's the Marcus Stroman revenge game. That's right. The Cubs face the Blue Jays. I know it's Kevin Gausman going for Toronto, but guess what? This game's not on the road.
Yeah, Gausman's awful at home. I like the first 5 in this game. I'm tired of seeing the Cubs bullpen blow leads.
That's fair.
So I'll take the first 5 out of that matchup.
Yeah, I think you can still get that at a pretty decent clip too.
Yep.
Let's see, first 5.
Probably like plus 170, plus 160.
Yep. Plus 170 at BetMGM.
Yep.
Plus 105 with the plus half a run.
That's not bad either. You're getting plus money for that?
Yep.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. Valdez over 6.5 strikeouts. Even money. Come on, really?
Yep.
Singer over 5.5 strikeouts. Anybody that's watched the White Sox lately knows that they're terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing Luis Robert won't be playing. But you never know.
I just want to bet the no hits, but it's like the White Sox actually realize that he clearly can't play. It's a shame.
That's disappointing.
The no hits would have been like plus 200 every time. It's a shame, but oh well.
And McClanahan over 7.5 strikeouts. Come on, he's facing the Marlins.
Yep.
Jeffrey says, obviously Baltimore here, but he loves the Guardians to get to Watkins.
It's a good spot.
Especially with Quantrill, because
yeah,
he pretty much walks into 5 runs of support.
Pretty much. But anything else you want to add, or should we just wrap up the show?
If you can't get enough of the picks, there's always the premium picks on the website. I think the link's in the show box below as long as Jim put it there. And, of course, Rochelle's got his picks on YouTube, along with his 37 other podcasts, including coming soon, a podcast about miniature golf.
I wish. Big miniature golf enthusiast over here. But
I like miniature golf, too.
Yeah, I retweet all the podcasts I'm in on Twitter. So just follow me there if you want more content.
That's true.
Yep. But other than that, though, we'll be back once again tomorrow. Which division do you want to cover tomorrow?
Doesn't matter.
No, but I'm asking. You have 2 options.
Yeah, suck and suckier.
Yeah, but you have the South and you have the North.
We'll do the North.
Okay, so we'll do the North tomorrow, and we'll also go through the.
Hell, we could even do the North and the South and just get them both over with.
We could, but I think it's better for content if we divide them up. So we'll do the North tomorrow. But until next time, good luck to all of you and all your bets. Bye, everyone.